Introducing the 2025 Pharmaceutical Innovation and Invention Index. It's the longest-running benchmark on innovation performance in pharma. And today, we're pulling back the curtain on what truly defines innovation in our industry. For more than a decade, we've been able to identify rising players and understand how pharma companies are translating science into patient impact and how. So, as we look through the lens of innovation today, while the data comes from 2024, the environment is changing dramatically. It hasn't just become a tougher environment, but also a more fragmented one. And in that reality, the leaders in today's index will need to be agile, defend long-term value, but also navigate a more politicized path to patients. If we think of the biotech sector, in the first quarter this year, they raised $4.2 billion in funds, compared to 11 billion last year in the same quarter. Cuts to federal science funds, as well as reduction of workforce at the FDA, raises concerns about the regulatory challenges that we're facing in the industry. And then investors and pharma companies have taken a more de-risked approach towards their assets and go for more clearer commercialization pathways, which again makes it tougher for biotechs, but also to keep more innovative programs alive at large pharma companies. So innovation and invention are not the same. Invention means the creation of something that did not exist before, and innovation is creating meaningful value from that invention. The index ranks companies using a range of clinical, regulatory, and commercial metrics, from the corporate level down to the individual product level, decisions and outcomes. So the Invention Index measures a company's potential value of its pipeline, and then the Innovation Index measures a company's ability to convert that potential value into realized value. Oh, I see something wrong with the slides, but they'll probably get it sorted. So ultimately, with the Innovation and Invention Index, we answer the question, what if you gave the same molecule to two different companies in early phase? Would they be equally successful? So I think we all know the answer is no. So the more interesting question is why? And this isn't just about who spends the most dollars or who gets drugs approved. I think even this year, it's become more clearer that there's not just one playbook to innovation. It's about how companies invent, execute, and evolve their pipelines and their products. So with this chart, where you can see the ranking of the 30 pharma companies in our index, taking a closer look at the top-performing companies at the right-hand side, they are not only able to invent, but also to deliver their products across regions. They have a high R&D reinvestment as a signal to the belief in their pipelines. And they deploy diversified strategies, thinking about life cycle management, but also modality diversification and the partnerships that they take on, as we also discussed earlier this morning. So if we then think about the ultimate list in terms of the winners for this year, it's been a tight race, actually. But first of all, I want to congratulate Eli Lilly with getting the #1 position on innovation, and AstraZeneca reclaiming its top spot on invention. The top performers here in the top 10 have been relatively stable, with the exception of UCB and Regeneron, who have entered the top 10 for very different reasons, which also highlights there is not just one pathway to innovation. And besides seeing the names of the companies here on this list, it's even more interesting why they are on it. So if we think of Eli Lilly, they've taken over the #1 spot from Novo Nordisk. Its success is really driven by their therapies in obesity and diabetes, two of the commercially most impactful disease areas in modern pharma. And Eli Lilly does better in terms of financial performance, growth, being able to also generate access for their products in different regions. But then also they have a diversified therapy area growth strategy and had a significant approval in Alzheimer's disease. And also their platform-first thinking helps them maintain their leadership in the metabolic space. If we then double-click on some of the other pharma companies, and apologies for the slide not being fully visible here, But looking at Roche, a top-performing company for many years on our index and now on the 3rd spot, they've had the highest number of approvals, 7 in total, of which 5 BLAs, which demonstrates their leadership in biologics. If we then look at Regeneron, they've had no approvals, but they're a scientific powerhouse. They have a large and very productive pipeline, actually 285% larger than the market average. They have 13 products in market and 37 assets in development, focusing on rare disease, CRISPR technologies, but also looking at combination treatments across solid tumors. So their pipeline really focuses on areas with high unmet medical need. If we look at UCB, as I mentioned, also re-entry this year, they fell off back in 2021 from the top 30 list, but now they score really well across all innovation metrics. They have a solid late-phase pipeline in dermatology as well as in neurology, and positive data readouts signal upcoming approvals as well as solid lifecycle management. AstraZeneca shares a 3rd spot with Roche in terms of innovation, but has reclaimed their spot on invention. And their success is largely driven by their cancer portfolio, the oncology portfolio, where they've made a lot of progress in terms of lifecycle management across multiple cancers and also regional expansion in China and Japan. And then interestingly, we have Hengrui from China, ranking number 10 on invention. So they're still very much a regional player, but they're well set and making a lot of progress in terms of global expansion. They also have a very strong revenue performance as well as reinvestment in R&D. When we look at innovation and also in terms of revenue performance, we also look at revenue freshness. This is the proportion of revenue coming from newly launched products in the last 3 to 5 years. So have they really been able to bring drugs to market that make an impact for patients versus, you could say, the older modalities that are on the market. Top performing companies have a good balance between where the revenue is coming from, which promotes sustainable innovation in our industry. So if you want to learn more, you can download the full white paper with the top 30 companies from our website. Also, I'm here the rest of the day for any specific questions. And I'm also very excited to announce that we will be launching this fall the first ever China-specific Innovation Index, as we see kind of how this region is really growing and becoming a global leader in pharma as well. So thank you very much, and have a great rest of the day.